Hello, I'm CJ Werleman, and in this week's episode, we uncover Israel's strategy to amplify the Muslim Zionist network as a cornerstone of its new public relations campaign. But first, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. If there's one thing that we've learnt about Zionist propaganda during the past 9 months, it's that it's not only gone from bad to worse, but also become increasingly desperate, a reality that hasn't gone unnoticed by some of the more honest international media outlets, with many calling the Jewish state out for its blatant lies and absurdity. And one of the more ridiculous narratives Israel is pushing into the public sphere is the idea that the Jewish state is a pluralistic democracy, where non-Jewish peoples are welcomed, tolerated, and treated equally under the law, when in fact the opposite is true. Israel operates a system of apartheid within its own borders and in the occupied Palestinian territories, according to 17 Israeli human rights groups and civil society organizations, all of whom have branded Israel an apartheid state. But this is where Muslim Zionists become Israel's useful idiots, even when in some instances Israel invents them to sell its propaganda, like in this photo here, showing an alleged Muslim Israeli soldier praying next to his Jewish Israeli comrade in Gaza. The photo is an easily provable lie, because first of all, Muslims and Jews do not face the same direction during prayer, with Muslims facing towards Mecca to the south and Jews facing Jerusalem to the north. And secondly, Muslims do not look straight ahead during prayer. They always keep their eyes pointed towards the ground as an act of humility before God. Nevertheless, Israel tried to pass this off as evidence of its claims of being an enlightened democratic society, as it commits genocide. Netanyahu's social media manager also played this trick in a recent tweet, in which he wants you to believe that Muslims and Jews happily coexist in the Holy Land, with only extremists standing in the way of his imagined coexistence. But by extremists, he means any Palestinian who resists Israel's criminal occupation of Palestine or its genocide in Gaza. And also, the man wearing the Islamic robe is not a Palestinian, but an Emirati government official who visited Israel shortly after his country sold out the Palestinians by normalizing relations with their Zionist occupiers 4 years ago. It was this so-called Arab normalization that propelled the Muslim Zionist movement into the spotlight. I mean, Muslim Zionists pre-existed the Abraham Accords, but only in tiny or insignificant numbers. Today, however, they are coming out of the woodwork to shill for Israel in exchange for fame and fortune. Like this Pakistan-born Muslim here, who wrote an op-ed saying, and I quote, "The Abraham Accords gave a breath of life to us Muslim Zionists, as it gave us an opportunity to support Israel and the Jewish people openly," end quote. This same Muslim Zionist helped a Jewish television outlet produce this propaganda video 4 weeks after Israel commenced its genocide in Gaza.
As a Muslim of Pakistani descent who is also a religious Salafi, I have finally accepted the ideology of Zionism, which I believe to be based on peace, acceptance, and dialogue. Zionism is a peaceful ideology which should lead others to accept the reality of Israel as a legal and legitimate state for the Jewish people. Muslims should not fear or malign the political ideology of Zionism.
Muslim Zionists are individuals who engage and center their relationships with Israel and Zionism while silencing, ignoring, and demonizing Palestinian voices, while also accepting Zionism's central premise that claims European Jewish migrants have a right to self-determination on stolen Palestinian land. But no real Muslim anywhere actually believes that Zionist settler colonialism on Palestinian territory is a right of the Jewish people. All true Muslims believe that the land belongs to Palestinians, and the same can be said for anti-Zionist Jews. Because real Jews, like real Muslims, don't accept Zionism. Real Jews understand that Zionism is colonialism, not Judaism, and real Jews acknowledge that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians.
Zionism is basically worshiping the state of Israel rather than God. Many synagogues have Israeli flags in them, and I think that this is a dramatic confusion of what the purpose of prayer is. But I'm an optimist because I think we're moving away from that now. We're moving away from the Zionist control of Judaism.
If Zionism is a morally and religiously bankrupt ideology, which it most definitely is, then Muslim Zionism is equally fraudulent. It's invented and used only to lay down political cover for the criminal Zionist military occupation of Palestine. The Muslim Zionist movement has found a home in the UAE, which is unsurprising given it's also home to every other kind of criminal or fugitive, from international drug dealers to serial sex offenders. And now it's home to phony Muslims who spread propaganda for Israel, like this Emirati character here, Faris Hamadi. He loudly praises MBZ for normalizing his country's ties to Israel, but more recently, he criticized Muslims for boycotting the Zionist state as it commits genocide in Gaza.
Like that. If the Muslim government or the ruler says boycott, then yes, because he knows things you don't know. And they have agreements, they have taken care of it. So now he says, okay to boycott. And it happened before. But if it doesn't happen now, meaning that we don't know something. It's going to harm us if we boycott them. Yeah? So boycotting, that's why many of the ulama, they said boycotting is haram. It's not up to you, Habib. It's not up to you. The deal is between the government or the government agency, like, the municipality or the Department of Economy or whatever. They had a deal with so-and-so company. You come and say to the people, hey, don't buy from them. Why? Who are you? What authority do you have? It's not.
Now we have this guy, the unofficial spokesperson for the Emirati government. He spends his days on Twitter constantly praising MBZ, the Israeli government and the Abraham Accords. He also regularly lavishes praise on the Modi regime in India, even as it commits near genocide levels of violence against Muslims. And he also supports India's Hindu settler colonial project in Kashmir, as does the Emirati regime. And when he isn't licking the boots of anti-Muslim forces around the world, he comes after journalists like me on social media. He's accused me of having ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, and he's also urged me to kill myself. Nice guy. These nefarious individuals are also tied to the Madkhali movement, which is characterized by a slavish loyalty to governments in the Arab world and based on the writings of Sheikh Rabi Madkhali. They shield Arab Gulf regimes from criticism by draping their arguments in quasi-Islamic terms. And they operate stealthily by attaching themselves to popular causes like the Palestinian Liberation Movement and then push narratives that absolve the treachery of the Emirati and Saudi governments against the Palestinian people. Popular YouTuber Shahid Bolson is one such individual. He rightly criticizes Israel but never condemns the Arab governments for facilitating the destruction of Gaza and the Palestinian state. But even more tellingly, he claims the Emirati president and the Saudi crown prince represent the greatest hope for the entire Muslim world, which is a preposterous statement given the violence and bloodshed they have both inflicted upon Muslim lands during the past decade. And Bolson says that you're an irrational hater if you criticize his Arab leaders. In fact, he strongly rejects any form of opposition to monarchies and dictatorships in the Middle East because his sole job is to polish the image of Arab rulers online. You can learn more about him by following Daniel from the Muslim Skeptic. He has done a fantastic job in not only exposing this guy, but also others like him within the Madkhali network. Because as he rightly points out, the Madkhalis and Muslim Zionists are products of the Zionist lobby and the RAND-sponsored Reform Islam network.
Over the past 2 decades, Zionist groups have begun a transformation of Islam in the same way that they tried to transform, or they did transform, a lot of Christianity, Catholic and Protestant. Christianity reformed it. You have the same attempts on Islam. And these policies began with the War on Terror after 9/11, CVE policies, countering violent extremism, and then eventually the Abraham Accords. So these kinds of initiatives historically since 9/11 have been meant to get Muslims to be more aligned with Israel, be more open to Israel, normalize relations with Israel. And
if you have ever wondered why the Muslim world remains divided and demoralized on so many issues that negatively affect the lives of repressed Muslim populations, well, now you know. The enemies of Islam have meticulously infiltrated and sabotaged every Muslim liberation cause to sow doubt, confusion, and division, which is why these networks and individuals must be exposed and countered. Because until that happens, Palestine will remain occupied, and Muslims everywhere else will remain repressed, persecuted, or brutalized. It's important we never forget that Hamas attacked Israeli occupation forces on October 7th because Muslim leaders had forsaken Palestine by normalizing ties or threatening to normalize ties with the criminal Zionist state, therefore making Muslim Zionists ultimately responsible for the genocide taking place in Gaza today. But I will leave you with that, because that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we kindly ask you please support our effort to expose and confront injustices in the Muslim world by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/Untitled patreon.com/CJWerleman. We can't produce, sustain and grow the show without your help, and we offer exclusive content and benefits to those who do. But for now, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and stay blessed.